Well, what I can say, I heard somebody saying that strength comes from unity, and the European Union is really united. And I'm afraid that maybe the British Prime Minister underestimated the determination of the European Union. So if there will be no deal, there will be no deal. It will be a pity for both the United Kingdom and the European Union. But it's time now to come to a compromise and to make some concessions.
Well, from what
Because
we're
on the
hearing,
1st of January, anyway, it will be Brexit.
this concept of compromise is confusing us tonight, because it sounds, from what our political editor said, was that 2 weeks ago the level playing field had been agreed. It was a non-regression agreement. And then the EU started moving that and started to demand that Britain entered a dynamic alignment, which means if EU wants to change, we have to change too. You can see why that would push negotiations backwards.
Well, a negotiation is made of concessions. Well, I don't have the details on this precise thing, but we know that there are still some gaps on fishing, gaps on conditions of fair competition, and gaps on governance. So I trust the negotiators to find the right compromise at the end of the day. But it's true that we are maybe losing our patience, because the time is going and nothing is happening.
John Barron, is there any concession that you think Boris Johnson should be making this evening that clearly hasn't been made?
Well, in any negotiation, there's going to be an element of concession.
Well, what is that element? Just to pin that down.
Yeah. Well, I think what he's got to do is stand firm on this issue of sovereignty. There is no point leaving the EU if we then sign up to their future rules and regulations. That's not sovereignty.
With respect, I didn't ask where he should stand firm. I asked where the elements of concession were that you mentioned. Where should he give ground?
Well, I think the fishing issue is something that, as I understand, we are in lockstep. The government is in lockstep with our own commercial fishing organisations. Even if we got 100% access to our waters tomorrow, we don't have the size of fleet because of the common fisheries policy. We don't have the size of fleet. So maybe there's a little bit of ground there whilst we take time to build up the size of our fleet and fish our waters. But the sovereignty of our waters, the sovereignty of our position in not abiding by EU rules and regulations is absolutely paramount. I hope we get a deal, but it's got to be a good deal on equal terms.
Where would Labour make those concessions, Jonathan?
Look, if what we read in the press is true about the negotiations, fishing, the level playing field, and how alignment is handled in future have been the issues for around about 4 years. There's nothing new. I think it suits both sides to perhaps suggest things are further apart than they really should be. There will need to be some sort of arbitration mechanism for where things differ in future. We're not going to sign up to rules we get no say under. I think that's fairly obvious. There's mostly in trade agreements, there's some sort of non-regression clause. And for us on the Labour side, we wouldn't want to cut labour standards, environmental standards. So I think that's relatively